There's a deal you never agreed to. A silent, invisible contract that somehow, without your knowledge, became the law of your heart. You didn't sign it, you didn't read the terms, but you've been living by it every single day. It promises connection, promises warmth, promises that if you give enough, love will come pouring back to you. But what it delivers is emptiness. It delivers distance. It delivers the gut-wrenching truth that the very person you reach for is the one who keeps pulling away. This is the deal with the avoidant, a deal that begins with chemistry and ends with confusion. At first, you feel chosen. The way they look at you, the way they respond in those early days, it's intoxicating. It feels like the start of something powerful, something real. But slowly the energy shifts. They begin to retreat, to guard themselves, to give less without explanation. And instead of walking away, you lean harder, you chase, you explain, you try to earn back what was freely given at the start. You start to believe that the problem is you, that if you were just a little more patient, a little more understanding, a little more lovable, the connection would return. But that's the first clause of the hidden contract. It's always your job to make it work. Their distance becomes your responsibility. Their silence becomes your puzzle to solve. And without realizing it, you take on the role of the pursuer, the fixer, the one who carries the weight of the relationship while they drift just far enough away to keep you unsettled. The second clause is more dangerous. It tells you that their withholding is proof that you must try harder. Every time they pull away, it triggers a primal instinct to close the gap. You think you're fighting for love, but in reality, you're being conditioned to accept less, conditioned to ignore your needs, conditioned to confuse uncertainty with passion, inconsistency with depth, and emotional starvation with intimacy. You start living in a cycle of hope and disappointment where the occasional crumb of connection feels like a feast. The third clause is the one that changes you the most. Your worth is now tied to their approval. When they give, you feel alive. When they withdraw, you feel worthless. And slowly, without ever deciding to, you hand over control of your self-esteem. They become the mirror you look into to see your own value. And that mirror is cracked, warped, and built to distort the truth. This contract is not written in words. It's written in patterns. It's written in the way your heartbeat changes when you see their name on your phone, in the way you stay awake wondering what you did wrong, in the way you replay every interaction looking for clues. It's written in your willingness to shrink, to bend, to silence your needs so you can keep the connection alive. And the worst part, you think this is love. But it's not love. It's an arrangement you never chose, one that was handed to you by someone too afraid to give what you need and too skilled at keeping you close enough to hope. It's the perfect trap, a promise dangled just out of reach, keeping you running in circles around the very thing that is draining you. And here's the truth that shatters the illusion. No matter how much you give, this contract will never pay out. There is no moment where your effort suddenly unlocks the love you've been waiting for. There is no magic threshold where they realize your worth and rush in to meet you fully. This is not a negotiation. It's an endless loop designed to keep you hoping for what will never consistently exist. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start to recognize how much of yourself you've traded away for moments of connection that never last. You see how this hidden deal has shaped your choices, bent your boundaries, and taught you to see scraps as a banquet. You see how you've been taught to equate longing with love, distance with desire, and pain with passion. The truth is, the contract is not binding. It never was. But it feels binding because it feeds off the part of you that wants love so deeply you'll pay almost any price for it. It manipulates your generosity, your loyalty, your capacity to see the best in someone even when they're showing you the worst. It tells you that your strength is in staying, when in reality, your strength is in leaving. And here's the most dangerous clause of all, the one that keeps you from tearing it up, the belief that walking away means you failed. That's the lie that seals the deal. That's the reason you stay longer than you should. That's why you keep renegotiating with yourself instead of tearing up the agreement. But failure is not walking away. Failure is abandoning yourself in the process of holding on to someone else. This is the truth the contract doesn't want you to know. You are allowed to refuse. You are allowed to walk away from anything that diminishes you. You are allowed to rip up the terms, to step out of the cycle, to reclaim the parts of yourself you've been giving away for nothing. You are not put here to be an emotional beggar. You are not put here to earn love by sacrificing your dignity. The hidden contract only holds power as long as you keep signing it with your silence, your forgiveness, and your hope. The moment you stop, the deal ends. And when it ends, you will feel the ground shift beneath you. Not because you've lost them, but because you found yourself. It begins subtly. You don't notice it at first because you're still drunk on the high of the early connection. In the beginning, they made you feel like the center of the universe, like you were the one they'd been searching for all along. The way they looked at you, the way they spoke to you, the way their attention wrapped around you, it felt like finally coming home. That was the hook. But then, almost without warning, something shifts. The warmth cools. The energy changes. Where there was constant communication, now there are pauses. Where there was enthusiasm, now there is hesitation. You tell yourself it's nothing, that life gets busy, that people have moods. And you're right. But this isn't just life. This is the beginning of the cycle. Here's the twisted truth about the unavailable. They know exactly how to give just enough to keep you invested. They don't vanish completely. that would make it too easy for you to walk away. Instead, they give in bursts. One day they are fully present, telling you things that make your heart expand, making you feel seen, chosen, and wanted. The next day they are cold, distant, unreachable. This isn't randomness. This is reinforcement. It's the same principle that keeps gamblers at slot machines, the occasional win that makes you forget how much you've already lost. That inconsistency is addictive. You start chasing the high of those connected moments, doing whatever you can to get back to the closeness you felt before. You analyze texts, you replay conversations, you adjust your tone, your timing, your responses. You think, if I can just say the right thing, if I can just show up in the right way, they'll open up again. But the more you chase, the more the dynamic solidifies. Them in control, you in pursuit. And pursuit is exhausting, but it's also intoxicating. Because somewhere along the way, the chase itself becomes proof to you that what you're feeling is love. The longing, the aching, the hoping, you start mistaking those emotions for passion. You start believing that the intensity of wanting them means they must be worth wanting. The seduction works because it's not just about them, it's about you too. It's about the part of you that craves validation, the part that believes love must be earned, the part that finds safety in the familiar patterns of unpredictability. Maybe you've been here before in some form or another. Maybe the unavailability feels familiar, almost comfortable, even though it hurts. It's like an old song, you know all the words to, you hate it, but you can't stop humming along. And here's the most dangerous part. When they finally give you those moments of closeness again, it feels like a victory. You think you've done something right. You feel powerful, wanted, special. But that's not power. That's dependency. You're not in control of the connection. You're waiting for it to be handed to you. And they're the ones deciding when, how, and if that happens. This dynamic conditions you to ignore your own needs. You stop asking for consistent affection because you don't want to scare them off. You stop expressing your hurt because you don't want to seem too much. You stop showing the parts of yourself that need reassurance because you've learned those parts get met with withdrawal, not warmth. And the more you hide, the smaller you become. The seduction of the unavailable thrives in this space, the space where you begin to believe that the problem is you. You tell yourself they would be more present if only you were better at communicating, more attractive, more successful, less demanding. You convince yourself that they are distant because of something you did, rather than seeing that this is who they are. The truth, they were unavailable long before you met them. This pattern didn't start with you and it won't end with you, unless you choose to end it. But ending it requires the one thing the seduction works hardest to prevent: clarity. As long as you're chasing, you're not seeing the situation for what it is. As long as you're holding on to the hope that this time will be different, you're not facing the truth that it never will be. Unavailability is not mystery. It's not depth. It's not romantic tension. It's a wall. And no matter how much love you pour into a wall, it will never become a door. The seduction works because it ties your hope to their inconsistency. It convinces you that every cold moment is just a setup for a warm one. It makes you think you're on the verge of breakthrough when really you're trapped in a loop. And the more you stay, the harder it is to remember a time when love felt safe, steady, and certain. You're not weak for getting caught in it. You're human. You're wired to seek connection, to pursue love, to hold on to hope. But you're also wired to survive. And at some point, survival demands you stop mistaking the absence of love for proof that it's just around the corner. Because here's the truth they don't want you to realize: the same way they've conditioned you to stay, you can condition yourself to leave. The moment you stop chasing is the moment the spell begins to break. And once it breaks, you start to see the seduction for what it really is. Not romance, not destiny, not fate, but a beautifully crafted illusion designed to keep you right where they want you, reaching for something they have no intention of giving. This is where the damage begins to sink deeper than you realize. At first, it's just frustration, confusion, maybe a little hurt. But when they pull away, you tell yourself it's temporary. You think you can handle it. But slowly, something else starts happening, something quieter, more dangerous. It's not just that you're disappointed, it's that you're beginning to change. Avoidant dynamics don't just bruise your heart, they erode your sense of self. They chip away at your boundaries piece by piece until you can no longer remember where you end, and they begin. You start making small compromises in the name of keeping the peace. You silence your needs to avoid pushing them further away. You tell yourself that patience is strength, when in reality it's become permission for them to give you less. Your identity starts to blur. The person you were before you met them, the one who laughed freely, spoke openly, and had a clear sense of self-worth, starts to feel like a stranger. You stop trusting your own emotions. You question your instincts. You begin to treat your feelings like problems to fix rather than signals to listen to. And this isn't a sudden collapse. It's erosion, slow, steady, almost invisible at first. Like water dripping on stone, it wears you down over time. One unreturned text doesn't break you. One cold response doesn't undo your confidence. But repeated over and over, those moments accumulate until you're left doubting not just the relationship, but yourself. The avoidant pattern teaches you something toxic: that love is earned through endurance, that closeness must be chased, that your needs are burdens to the other person. You learn to measure your worth and how much of yourself you can give without asking for anything in return. And when you finally do ask, their withdrawal makes you feel ashamed for even trying. That shame is the trap. It convinces you that you're the problem. It whispers that if you were less needy, more easygoing, more chill, they'd love you more. It makes you shrink to fit inside the narrow space they're willing to offer. And each time you shrink, you lose another piece of yourself. But the toll isn't just emotional, it's physical. Your body begins to carry the weight of the anxiety. You find yourself tense without realizing it, shoulders tight, jaw clenched. Your sleep suffers. Your energy dips. The constant cycle of hope and disappointment floods your system with stress hormones that keep you in a state of vigilance, as if you're always waiting for the next shift, the next retreat, the next cold front to blow through. The cruel part, you normalize it. You start to believe that this is just what relationships are. You convince yourself that everyone feels this kind of uncertainty, that the pull is a sign of passion, that the ache in your chest means the connection is real. But love that's real doesn't drain you like this. Love that's real doesn't turn you into a version of yourself that's unrecognizable. And here's what makes the psychological toll so devastating, it's invisible to everyone else. On the outside, you might look fine, you still smile, function, still show up to work or talk to friends. But inside, you're carrying a constant undercurrent of doubt and fear. Inside, you're negotiating with yourself every day about how much more you can take. Inside, you're quietly falling apart, one unreciprocated effort at a time. This kind of erosion changes the way you think about love entirely. It rewires your brain to expect instability, to crave intensity over security, to confuse longing with intimacy. And if you're not careful, it plants the seed for future patterns. You start seeking out dynamics that feel familiar even if they hurt, because your nervous system has learned to equate chaos with connection. That's the long-term cost of staying too long in an avoidant relationship. It doesn't just hurt you now, it shapes the love you accept in the future. You walk away believing that wanting more is unreasonable, that being met halfway is a luxury, that love is always supposed to feel like a battle. And that belief can follow you for years if you don't dismantle. The worst part is the toll isn't always obvious while you're in it. You think you're coping, but you're actually adapting, and you're adapting to less. You're adapting to uncertainty, to emotional starvation, to the constant push-pull. And the more you adapt, the more you lose touch with the truth you deserve better. It's not just about getting over them. It's about undoing the damage they left behind. It's about relearning how to trust your instincts, how to value your needs, how to believe that consistency is not boring. It's safe. It's about piecing yourself back together from the fragments you handed over in the hope of finally being seen. And here's the truth you need to hold on to. The psychological toll is not a reflection of your weakness. It's proof of your strength. It's proof that you've been fighting for something you believed in, even when it cost you pieces of yourself. But strength isn't just holding on. It's knowing when to stop. The toll is high, and it's rising every day you stay. The only way to stop paying is to step away from the table entirely. Because as long as you're in the game, the house always wins, and you're the one footing the bill. The most seductive lie in an avoidant relationship is the belief that you can fix it if you just try hard enough. It starts as hope, but over time it mutates into an obsession. You think that if you choose your words more carefully, if you become more patient, if you love them with enough intensity, they'll finally open up. You start to believe that you hold the keys to their walls, that if you press the right combination of loyalty, kindness, and understanding, the gates will swing open and they'll finally let you in. This is the illusion of control. And it is poison, because the truth is you're not holding the keys at all. You're holding a lock that was never meant to open. At least, but not for you, not now, and maybe not ever. But the belief that you can open it keeps you invested. It keeps you tolerating behavior you would never accept in any other area of your life. It keeps you turning yourself inside out for someone who is not meeting you halfway. You tell yourself you're strong because you can handle their distance. You tell yourself you're patient because you can wait for them to be ready. But what you're really doing is trading your peace for the possibility of a future that may never come. You're putting your emotional life on hold, placing it in their hands, and telling yourself you're the one steering the ship. The illusion feels real because it gives you purpose. In the chaos of the push and pull, fixing them becomes your mission. Every small moment of connection feels like progress, like proof that your efforts are working. And every setback, every cold day, every withdrawn glance becomes a problem you're determined to solve. You start adjusting yourself in ways that feel subtle at first. You hold back your feelings because you've learned they might scare them off. You downplay your needs because you've noticed they withdraw when you ask for too much. You smile when you want to cry, agree when you want to object, stay silent when you want to speak. And each time you do, you convince yourself it's strategic, that you're choosing the long game, that you're making sacrifices now for the reward later. But here's the reality you're avoiding. Every time you change yourself to fit their comfort, you're not moving closer to the relationship you want, you're moving further away from yourself. And the more you disappear into this role, the harder it becomes to see that you've been living in a performance, not a partnership. The illusion of control also thrives on your empathy. You see their fear of intimacy, their old wounds, their struggles with trust. and you want to be the person who heals them. You tell yourself you understand them better than anyone else. And maybe you do, but understanding someone's pain does not obligate you to suffer inside it with them. Their healing is not yours to manage. Their readiness is not yours to create. And here's where the illusion turns brutal. The longer you stay, the more you mistake your endurance for progress. You look back on everything you've endured, the silences, the rejections, the moments of coldness, and you think, I can't leave now. I've invested too much. But time spent in a losing game is not an investment. It's a debt. And every day you stay, the interest grows. Control in an avoidant relationship is an illusion because the very premise of it depends on their willingness to engage. And you can't force that. No amount of patience will make someone choose connection. No amount of love will dismantle someone's walls if they're committed to keeping them. You can't control their readiness, their capacity, or their desire. You can only control your own choices. And that's where the truth cuts deepest. You've had control all along, not over them, but over yourself. Every moment you stay, you're making a choice. Every time you chase, you're making a choice. Every time you silence your needs, you're making a choice. The question isn't whether you can make them change. It's whether you can make yourself stop playing the game entirely. This is the turning point most people resist because it means facing a truth they've been running from. They're not powerless victims of someone else's behavior. They're participants in a cycle that's destroying them. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The illusion of control is comforting because it lets you believe you're just one step away from the breakthrough. But breakthroughs don't come from bending yourself into smaller and smaller shapes to fit someone else's fear. They come from standing in your full truth, even if it means standing alone. And here's the final blow to the illusion. Sometimes walking away is the only real control you ever had. Not in changing them, not in fixing the relationship, but in deciding that your life will no longer be dictated by the push and pull of someone else's walls. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can stop wasting your power on unlocking a door that was never yours to open and start using it to walk through one that leads to your own freedom. There comes a moment when something in you snaps. It's not loud. Sometimes it's so quiet you almost miss it. But deep inside, there's a shift, a cold, undeniable knowing that you cannot keep living like this. You've tolerated the distance. You've swallowed the silences. You've convinced yourself to stay through the cold spells, the excuses, the endless cycle of almost connection followed by retreat. You've given chances until your soul is raw from the scraping. And for a long time, you told yourself this was strength. That holding on enduring was proof of your love and your loyalty. But now it feels different. The pain of staying has started to outweigh the fear of leaving. The weight on your chest has grown heavier than the uncertainty of what comes next. You've been running on empty for so long that the idea of walking away, as terrifying as it is, suddenly feels like the only way you might be able to breathe again. This is the breaking point. And when it arrives, you'll know. It's the moment you stop making excuses for their behavior. The moment you see that their distance isn't just a phase, it's the reality. The moment you realize that love should not feel like begging, that you were not put here to constantly prove your worth to someone who can't see it. For some, the breaking point comes in a single instant. One too many cold responses, one too many ignored needs, one moment of clarity so piercing it feels like glass shattering in your chest. For others, it's a slow burn. The gradual realization that the person you've been fighting for isn't fighting for you. That you've been clinging to potential, not reality. And here's the truth you've been avoiding. You cannot heal in the same place that breaks you. You can't build trust in a place where you're always bracing for abandonment. You can't feel secure in the arms of someone who only holds you when it's convenient. The breaking is not weakness. It's awakening. It's the moment you realize the cost of staying is your own identity. That every day you remain, you're agreeing to the same terms, accept less, give more, and pretend you're okay with it. You've been holding on because of the memories, the good moments, the rare times when the connection was real, when they let you close enough to feel their warmth. Those moments are powerful, and they're dangerous because they convince you that the person you want does exist, even if they only show up in fragments. But a relationship built on fragments will always leave you in pieces. At the breaking point, nostalgia loses its grip. The what if fades under the weight of the what is. You stop bargaining with the future and start looking at the present. You see the pattern for what it is, not a temporary storm, but the climate. And in that moment, the spell begins to break. There is fear here, yes. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear that maybe this was the best you'll ever have. That fear is natural. It's the echo of the same cycle that's kept you here this long. But alongside the fear, there's something else now: resolve. A quiet, fierce determination that you will not keep paying with your soul for the privilege of someone else's half-love. The breaking point isn't just about them. It's about you. It's about reclaiming the version of yourself you had to bury to make this relationship work. It's about remembering that love is not supposed to strip you of your voice, your joy, or your dignity. It's about finally deciding that you matter as much as the person you've been chasing. And when you reach this place, you'll understand something profound. You don't have to hate them to leave them. You don't have to villainize them to choose yourself. You simply have to accept that this is not love in a form that can sustain you, and that you deserve the kind of love that does. The breaking point is the doorway. You can step through it, or you can turn back and pretend you never saw it. But once you felt the weight of that knowing, pretending will never feel the same again. And here's the truth. The moment you step through, everything begins to change, not overnight, not without pain, but with a sense of clarity you haven't felt in years. You begin to see the world differently. You begin to see yourself differently. You start to realize that leaving isn't just about walking away from them. It's about walking back towards you. The breaking point is not the end. It's the beginning. But only if you're brave enough to listen to it. Enough. Enough waiting for the text that doesn't come. Enough explaining away the silences. Enough bargaining with your own dignity just to keep a place in someone else's life. You've been living in a contract you never signed, a cycle you never deserved, a love that asks for your everything while giving you pieces in return. And it ends now. You don't need their permission to walk away. You don't need their closure to move on. You don't need one last conversation to justify your choice. You need one thing, the decision that your life will no longer be dictated by the push and pull of someone who cannot meet you where you stand. Freedom begins the moment you stop negotiating with your own worth. The second you decide that scraps are not a meal, that longing is not love, that uncertainty is not passion. The second you decide you will no longer bend to fit inside the walls they've built, everything changes. This is not about proving a point to them. This is about reclaiming yourself. The self you abandoned when you silenced your needs. The self you had when you were told you were too much. The self you ignored every time your gut told you to run and you stayed anyway. That self is still here, waiting for you to choose it. You've been told that leaving is weakness, that giving up is failure, that if you love hard enough, they'll change. But here's the truth, leaving isn't quitting. It's refusing to participate in your own diminishment. Walking away isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of self-respect. And waiting for them to become someone they're not is not hope. It's self-abandonment in disguise. Your life is bigger than this relationship. Your heart is worth more than being an option. Your days are too precious to be spent decoding mixed signals like they're sacred messages from the universe. You don't have time to waste in the limbo of someone else's fear. You don't have the luxury of postponing your own joy for the possibility that they might one day wake up ready to love you. And you already know this. That's why you've been restless. That's why you've been hearing that small, steady voice in the back of your mind saying, this is not it. This is not enough. You are meant for more. You've been ignoring that voice because it terrifies you, not because it's wrong. It's time to stop waiting for them to choose you. Choose yourself. Now, not tomorrow, not after we talk, not when the timing feels right. There will never be a perfect moment to reclaim your life. There is only now. And every second you hesitate is another second you spend in chains you could have already broken. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, you will miss them. Yes, you will question your decision on the days when the loneliness creeps in. But pain is not always a sign you're doing the wrong thing. Sometimes it's proof that you're finally breaking free. Growth is never painless, but staying small costs far more than the discomfort of becoming who you were meant to be. You don't need to burn bridges or wage war. You don't need to explain your worth to someone who's shown they can't see it. You simply need to walk, step by step, day by day, in the direction of your own freedom. Every step away from them is a step back toward yourself. One day, not far from now, you'll wake up and realize the air feels lighter. The silence no longer feels threatening. The space in your life that once felt like loss now is like possibility. You'll see that leaving didn't take love away from you. It gave you back the ability to receive it fully from someone who is ready and able to give it without fear. But that day only comes if you make the choice. No one is coming to save you from this cycle. No one is going to hand you your freedom. You have to take it, and you can. You can do it scared. You can do it uncertain. You can do it with your heart still aching and your mind still second-guessing. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to move. So this is the moment. Tear up the contract. Walk out of the loop. Refuse to spend one more hour convincing someone to love you the way you deserve. The life you've been waiting for begins on the other side of this decision. Choose it. Choose you. And don't look back.